Okay, hello. Welcome to the Mist Podcast. It's your host, Aeromist. I'm going to be talking about my healing through food and pretty much the steps that I personally took to heal myself, heal my body, and really get to a point where I was feeling positive things inside of my existence and not negative-ended things. And for the first 22 years of my life, I was really trying to understand or figure out what was going on. I always was asking the question, why am I feeling how I'm feeling? Why do I crave what I crave? I was very aware, but I was aware to the point where I wanted to do something but didn't know how to do something about it. Because everyone around me had really blanketed attempts at trying to tell me exactly how, why, or what I should be doing, and didn't take into account the spiritual side of, or you could say, the emotional side as well, because I did not really grow up around emotional care. And so most of my life was a habit of emotional eating, and thus my body was holding on to all of the energy of all of the not so good feelings, emotions, thoughts, experiences in my existence. And when I talk about my healing through food specifically, it's not even just food, because that was just a part of why I was healing in general when it came to my mind and trying to heal. And that was something along the way that was a part of me having to transform myself. And food is a very direct topic for people now, because some people have understood what their food is doing to them. And I did not understand what my food was doing to me, why my food was influencing how I feel, why my food was influencing how I think. And so it came to a point where I was not really here for trying to keep going on with all these ridiculous patterns of eating something and not feeling not so good. And I used to eat everything you could think of. Not everything that you could think of, but a lot of pizza, chicken, meats, mainly white meats. I wouldn't eat a lot of red meat or anything like that. Just a lot of sweet stuff, anything I really could get my hands on that wasn't like barbecue, or I had some limits, but what really woke me up in the moment of what I was eating was the effects of that on me, my emotions, and my thoughts. And I really paid attention to that, because as I started changing around exactly what I was eating is whenever I would be able to oversee the changes going on in my body. I could tell when there were times when I didn't feel very good and times when I did feel very good. Now, I started this journey specifically in June of 2021. And I want to point out that I did not exercise at all to do this. I did not exercise to lose any of the weight, to do anything. All I did was change how I was eating. And I think that's partially why I feel like it's extremely important to come on here and talk about this kind of thing, because a lot of people that told me, even in my own experience, not just anywhere else on the planet, internet, or whatever, but in my experience when I was growing up, that you had to do specific types of things for yourself to help yourself. And nobody really gave me the direct understanding of the link of what it was and why it was happening. So, unironically enough, and I guess I could also tail in my healing with psilocybin and mushrooms, but I feel like this podcast specifically isn't, this episode doesn't have to curtail into that, because that's a whole different healing journey all in itself. And that healing journey is much more spiritual, metaphysical, and not so much material and stuck in the end of the foods that I'm eating, or, material-based items. It was all more of what I'm experiencing inside of my mentality and the real depths of the shifts that I was experiencing that even led me into changing what I'm eating and giving me the opportunity to experience why and how detrimental food can be to your existence, or how helpful it can be to your existence. Healing through food. Food is your medicine. And if it's not doing that, then it's probably destroying you, because everything is vibration and everything's set underneath a vibrational iteracy on how it is going to affect you no matter what happens. And if it affects you, then it also is going to affect every fractal part of your existence. Because we have to remember that everything in existence is nothing but fractals. And by fractals, meaning that there's always a rippling wave whenever a decision is made, whenever something happens, whenever your body is unconsciously processing food, it is still also processing the facet of the disbursement of energy on whatever it is that is flowing through you, because that is a part of how you are either gathering or being taken energy away from you. So my initial go into changing what I was eating was that I needed to stop stimulating myself. And this is mainly how I personally did it, was that I had to stop stimulating myself with every essence of food. So for 2 weeks, I drank a gallon of water a day, and I didn't do anything else. And that shed off 100 pounds, almost all in that 2 weeks. I did lose it a little fast, which probably wasn't the healthiest if you look at it from, my loose skin. But the way I felt while I was getting all of this out of my body felt more like I'm not really worried about the other side of anything except for the side that I'm going to be healed. So whenever I was going through the fast is really what showed me and helped me understand indulging yourself, or indulgence in general, because for the first time in my life, I'm over here saying no to eating specific types of foods, and I'm putting my foot down with myself and imposing a set of discipline, no, I'm not going to eat that or do that or crave for this or crave for that or whatever it might be. It was just as mental as much as it was physical, because your mentality is the facet of what you eat. So if you live constantly in a connotation of destroying your world or your mind or anything else, then the food and everything that you're eating is going to completely directly reflect that, regardless of what you attempt to do. And that's where many people that I've seen that try to explain some of these things are accurate or not so accurate on the dot of just letting you understand that there is always a ripple effect of what you exist as, what you take in, and how it affects you. And this is from emotions, and then the emotions to the thoughts, and then to how the body itself feels and how it begins to drag or does not drag, and whatever is going on. So I do not like, when I explain this, I don't like to call it that I went vegan, because it wasn't about I'm going to just not eat meat and then I'm going to eat a bunch of other very shitty chemicals and put them in my body. It had nothing to do with that. And I wasn't worried about my weight either. That's why I wasn't really concerned about how fast I lost. I was worried just about how I feel and overall how I want to feel. I answered my question, how do I want to feel? And I began to change everything in front of me based purely on that, my habits. And eating is just one of those extremely huge habits that influences your mind, your body, your soul, and what comes to you, what doesn't. Off track. Whenever I got out of the fast, I tried to just stick with pretty much only drinking fruit juice for about 3 months. And I think by around September, October 2021, I was I had shed off about 150 pounds or so. I think it was about 280, actually, something like that. I was down. And I started kind of trying to experiment again, where I was like, okay, let me see how some of the stuff that I've eaten before is going to affect me. And honestly, lo and behold, still to this day, that was probably a spiraling trap in itself. Because everything is designed to rope you in, and the dopamine that you get from something, and also the parasites in your stomach and reacting to the giving your brain electrical signals to signal for you to go be craving or craving something specific. And whenever I started going back to those, I could tell the biggest difference on how those were making me feel. And that's what really, I think, solidified some things for me forever, was just not only how it made me feel, but like, I had all my proof. Like, if you can't believe ever wholeheartedly that you can be something other than who you are now, then you can't attempt to change the habits that create the person that you are envisioning inside of your perspective. And if you're only going to see yourself as an unhealthy person, or however you're going to see it, then that's the habit you're going to exhibit. And I think a big part mentally out of all of it was that, like, I was attempting to follow what I felt was correct, because all of the stuff that I could go get out there that was vegan and I could cut that out. Well, what about the chemicals that I'm intaking in bread and glucosamine and, all these other things that can just really derail and take you down, because that's also a part of, like, the chemicalization of things that stick to your body. That those bad and not so good feelings are a part of what's sticking to your entire existence. And if you want to be able to shed those out, then it's giving up the things that are a part of the time period in your existence that's only relative to bringing you down instead of lifting you up. And I guess, that's why some people can live on it, for sure. But I mean, at what point? Because the food that we have that roams around now ends up just having more and more stuff thrown into it as time goes on. And technically, although people can withstand it, the food only gets worse, and it keeps bringing a lot of the world right now back to that holistic point of trying to grow some form of your own food or whatever. And there's a reason why you should, or if you eat a food that is never able to decompose, like that's the McDonald's stuff, then what do you think is happening inside of the body? How long do you think that stays in the body? And what do you think is the energetic outcome or effect of that happening? Because your body is not even designed to break down, like, it can, but it is not designed to break down complex carbohydrates like that. And so whenever you take that stuff in, you're just clogging up the body more and more. And this is kind of how, like, people gain weight, quote, quote. But it's like, because that would be the stored energy. But that's just a representation of, like, if you wanted to flush that out, then you would have to legitimately stop eating all of it and drop it all entirely. Maybe even cold turkey. I don't, like, the way I first did it, I didn't at all just, like, ease my way out of what I was doing before. I just, like, when I want to make a change, when anybody wants to make a change with themselves, it starts with you acting on the day, the moment. Because all I had to do literally was just stop eating so my body could start healing itself and could flush all that stuff out. And that's what helped me lose weight. And I never felt better. From then, from when I started that first fast until this day, I still have never felt better. My previous first 22 years of my life, completely no energy, no motivation. I was destroying myself as well. I was in the same boat as many people. And to be able to completely turn that around is beautiful and a blessing in itself, for sure. Something to be grateful for. Because I was, before that, at the point where I wasn't really sure what I was going to do next. And I needed to find that answer. I was really seeking it. And I think that that's a really big part, is, like, you can't lie to yourself and tell yourself that you're seeking something that you aren't. Because we can say all the time that, are you really trying to heal? Are you really trying to make your efforts? And those efforts, to some degree, are exposed in different points of time, and, like, when you're doing things. But it seems like it's always like that one day. You just wake up one day out of nowhere, and you're like, all right, this is it. I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. I'm like, and you know, if it's almost like the truth kind of comes out in your dreams sometimes. um because that's happened to me before too. I don't know about anybody listening. But like where I experience a day where like the day kind of started abruptly, and it's almost like I spawned into like a world that I didn't even know I created. And it just kind of took me for a loop, and sometimes it was good, sometimes it was bad, sometimes it was just kind of like I'm just vibing, you know, whatever happens is happening because everything's happening. And um I could say it kind of felt like that for me with the food, but you know, it's just like we can always make every excuse in the book to not push ourselves to do something better for what we know is like correct. But it's, I guess it's also like a moral thing too. Like you have to really ask yourself, like, is everything that you've ever followed really correct on like how you should treat your body and treat yourself, and what you put in your body and how it affects your body and all those things? Because I was lied to very deeply, and that's what really made me dig in to like start to understand my existence and things around me. And it's just, and not even anything too excessively complicated, but literally just like, you know, looking at the plate of food, like, okay, what is that? Like, I know it's whatever, but like, what is in it? Where did it come from? What do they do to get this in front of my face? What are the ingredients? What do the chemicals of those ingredients do? How does that change? What's the difference between regular stuff and non-GMO? Is the non-GMO stuff even actually true, or are they just putting that there as a label because they can? Like, what's where how much of this is truth, and how much am I being fed more lies? Because those lies that I was fed since I was a kid is what put me in a position where even when it was in my hands, it felt like it was still out of my hands. And there's so many people, I think, that get stuck right back in that position because you're only a product of the things that you've experienced and what you've come up and been brung up on. And unless you are able to be completely aware at a certain point of your own habits, situations, and what you're going to do with yourself as an entire entity, then it becomes a very different race where many people get stuck energetically. And that's why some people, like, you know, when I was doing DoorDash and I'd go see, you know, old people inside of the McDonald's, you know, 50, 60, 70 years old eating, and I'm like, you never, did you not get the point? Do you not understand? Like, and maybe that's once again because, and as we know, there are many people on this planet, no specific type of people, there are many people in general that do live referencing their past for many years into their future life, being whatever age. And it's definitely not just like people that are of way older, but there are many people that use time in their past and their previous as the biggest point of reference to their existence. And that's why they continue to reprimand patterns for the rest of their third dimensional, lower embodied existence. That's the entire premise of why that even happens. And that's why I end up seeing those people as like, it's just they got stuck in a pattern loop sometime in their existence, and that's what they've lived out. And that specific pattern loop, which is your food and what you eat, is so important that it becomes a dictator of your existence. Because if you're not treating your body well, then what is it doing? If it's not a living cell, it's a dying cell. And that's, you know, where it comes down to. Now, not to get too far off of my journey, but just to point out that there's some stuff out there, people talking about being able to live way longer than like our life expectancy, and I'm kind of like, I wonder why. And after, you know, going to only eating fruits and vegetables, and even now just trying to break some of my like really childish love for like hot food, for instance, because when you heat stuff up and you put a flame to it, you're altering its chemistry, and that can affect the body and not have as much nutrient base or whatever. And it's been a whole really rough journey in itself to figure out food and figure out how to prepare things. And I learned how to make a couple things, and then there's been times when like I keep doing my research and I'll have an ingredient, and then I find out that one of those ingredients is like actually not good for me, and then I was wondering why it was kind of making me not feel so good. And it just kind of feels like trying to escape a constant rat trap of food. And then on top of that, you have microplastics and you have everything else that it's packaged in. And it's just like, when you start running down the line, it just seems like a long rabbit hole that does not have the best ending. Because there's always something that's trying to pull you uh, into the negative, and you just have to have the spirit of fighting that through. Because if you really want something, then you can get it. If you want to change, then it's pretty simple. I say simple, but acceptance of the truth is what's difficult. And I had to accept the truth of who I was, where I was, what I was doing, and how things were doing, how the effect of what was happening to me was influencing and changing my existence, and what was even happening from there. So the real only option I had at that point was to evaluate everything, and like even marijuana was something I had to reconsider. Am I even going to smoke this anymore? And I kind of fell back into it, but at times I'm just like, there has been many days where I just felt better without it. Like I really just felt better just not smoking it at all. And there's been some days as well with psilocybin where, like, you know, depending on what it is and like how much the dose is, but there's been days where I just didn't, many days where I had no problems. And then I think the mushrooms are strain dependent when it comes to that. But they're not the same. But once I've shed my body and I shed everything out, when I start taking all the stimulation away from me again, I start to feel so much better and so much clear-headed and even more productive. And I feel like that's just a very big part of like receptors in the brain. Of course, you know, marijuana is giving you the dopamine and all that kind of stuff and whatever else. And so, and even saying this out loud is just like, your healing journey is never truly over. Maybe ever. Or, you know, maybe it's just good to say that there doesn't have to be a destination. And I think that's a real reason why, if you focus on, or anyone focuses on attempting to like lose a specific amount of weight without just accepting the fact that the things that they were putting in their body aren't good for them, even if they think it's healthy, you know, like some grilled chicken and some rice, like, no, you're still eating trash, bro. And that's why and it still blows my mind that I really sat there and I like just accepted that whatever I thought I knew about things was correct, and that's all it was. And it wasn't until I started really figuring it out that I figured it out, and I realized like why there was no results from what I was given, especially when it came to my mental health. I'm like, where's the answers? I need answers. I need someone to give me guidance, because I wanted to be able to have the guidance, and it was never given. So I had to eventually find the ways to take it upon myself to educate myself and whatever else was necessary. And so it wasn't at all either just like I'm trying to lose my identity of the self that has to be shed. And the sense of that self is the person that is associated to habits that are not associated to a healed version of me. And that's what you always have to be thinking about, is like, what goal are you accomplishing every day when you wake up? Like, what are you going after? And what goal do you have of how you're going to feel inside of your head? Because whatever that is still going to be a very big, vindictive, dictative thing inside of your whole day-to-day life forever. And if you move with some form of intention, then you will see the essence of those results. But if the results of that if you cannot be satisfied with building the parameters of having a goal and then getting a result, then finding the existence to not dopaminize your life, and maybe that's something groundbreaking to think about, is how like dopamine related we make our existence. And it's supposed to be like that to some degree, but you know, even if it's not a goal, just being able to like, I feel like we still have to have goals though, otherwise we start, you know, there has to be some form of purpose. And if there's not, then you're just not going to be moving forward. But evolution and evolutionary things are a constant thing, no matter what. They're constantly rotating, evolving, progressing. And that is a never-ending thing. It's almost just like being on a train that picks up stopping points, because those stopping points can be where, you know, you can celebrate or whatever else you're going to do there. But you also don't have to get off the train at all, and you could just literally continue to keep going and going and going and going and figuring out what's next. And doing that though comes with not getting stuck at any of those stations either, because some people in their journey get stuck at some station. And I feel like I myself have kind of been sitting at a station for a while, just kind of looking around for some aspects of my existence, and I have to keep those things moving. And it can be a lot to handle sometimes. It really can, because you're literally going through and shedding a lot of things, and a lot of people have a lot of things to shed and a lot of deep things. And sometimes that, maybe it's not even in the form of weight, right? But it's like, how conformed are we idealistically behind being so indulged in our stimulants? And I still feel like some of the best times that I had was when I was fasting. And at some point in the near future, I want to do a 3-month fast where it's like, it's only liquids. And I just want to see how far I can get with it. And by how far, I mean, I would do all of it, but I want to see and pay attention to the effects and almost do a follow-up of this, because there really was different sectors of how my, you could say the fat on my body, but the energy on my body was shedding. And it came even in the form of I got down to close to 200 pounds, and I thought I was done. I thought I was I don't need to lose anything else. You know what I mean? And I still was just because of what I was eating, the weight kept going off. And that's why you don't care about the weight, because you're supposed to be getting healthy. And if you want to maintain having some type of I would say water content on your body, then eating a lot of vegetables can do that. But, once again, I think if we understand and live by what the truth is of the design of ourselves, and we follow that, is when we're going to be able to receive some of the best results for living how we want to live. If how we want to live is something that's positive, great, and whatever. But some people are happily lost or happily guided in the lower dimensional phases of their existence. And, not everybody out there that's on top of those lower vibrational interactions with food or substances or whatever are unsatisfied with everything about their life. But I think energy doesn't lie, just like how the universe doesn't. And everything in front of you tells you exactly what you need to hear, need to understand. And I think that's part of the stimulants anyways. They just get people away from the constant truth that evolves in front of their face. Because if you attempted to keep up with rolling on that train, then really you would never stay in the same place at all, unless you found your satisfaction. And that's something that everybody can get to as well. But I think, once again, everyone is designed underneath a different premise, and telling the story is for the people out there that feel like they can resonate to some degree with solidifying the understanding of what they actually have to do next is accept the truth of that food, stop indulging in it, and discipline the self to have to go through something that maybe you don't want to at the start, but by the time you get deep enough into it, there's no going back. And it's kind of like putting on the glasses of the world. You can pay attention to what's going on. You can understand how things actually are around you in every facet, from how a city is structured and how the businesses put into that city are structured, specifically designed to put down or uplift a specific part of a local community, and why that also affects crime rates and how these other, whatever. There's a long list you could go down just by observing the world in front of you and walking out your door, going down the street and just taking a look around you. And you don't have to understand or know anything about what you are looking at. But if you want to understand the depths of what's in front of you, then you have to understand the depths of yourself. And that is why people get stuck. Or you could say, even enjoy the ride of being on the low vibrational roller coaster. And that's the part of this lower dimension anyway, is that you're in a density that lets you experience whatever it is that you would like to. But if you want to heal, if you want progression, growth, if you want evolution, if you want to be able to live in whatever way that you deem is comfortable to you, and that's different for everybody. But once again, and healing is different for everybody too. But I think taking the big facet of the generalization that if you seek whatever, you will also attract whatever it is that you try to put yourself into. And if you give your all, or you have a lot of emotion and intention behind you accomplishing that, you don't need any psychedelic, you don't need any substance that's going to do that for you, but you would and will need the spiritual willpower to take yourself through something that would not make you comfortable. And that is a really big part about the stimulants and taking them away, is that if you want to grow, if you want to find a new sense of self, you want to reestablish who you are and not have big person habits or old person habits or whatever habits you don't want to affiliate with, then you have to be only living and abiding by the presence of what you deem you truly are. And, that can be a process sometimes, but it's probably not going to be comfortable. And that's why the truth itself can hurt for some, and they can't swallow it and accept it and take that just as a plaintiff to run with it. But something has to give you the opportunity to validate yourself, to be like, all right, that's my reason for why I'm going to do this, because I don't or do like this. And I'm just, use your existence almost as like some type of experiment to your higher self almost, right? Because that's what I was doing with food for a minute right there, when I was like eating stuff and figuring it out. And just, but I also had the same discipline of like, when it didn't make me feel good, that I just stopped even associating with it. And along the way, I started letting something slide from that. And I think even in this conversation openly of myself talking, is that I need to now actually go back into this idea, go on that liquid fast for 3 months and really finalize getting myself right in my existence. And, the journey is beautiful. The destinations can be just as beautiful, or maybe even more beautiful. But, if you look at the whole thing and you highlight it, all of it's beautiful, and you should stick with the ride. Emotions and intentions are important. If you don't want it, you won't do it. So it doesn't take exercise. It takes love and care for yourself. You have to love and care about you. And it took me a while to get there, and that's why it took so long. But eventually I started to care. And I started to care and love myself more and more, to the point where I couldn't even go back. There was no way or opportunity for me to walk away. So I'm going to go and make a part 2 of this very soon to talk about the other side of my personal healing, which is the psychedelic aspect and purely the mental. But, now, and I'm sure I might get some comments of people asking me, well, what do you eat now? Every single day I make a smoothie. I pretty much only eat fruits and vegetables. I don't really eat as many like full-on meals that I wish I did. I make like fruit bowls and stuff like that. I've still been trying to figure out how to expand it. And when I do, I might even do like a course or something like that about like using that type of food and how you can make some of the actual healthiest renditions of some of the stuff we've all, liked from a gourmet side of the world. Because, I don't want to just drop everything that I've ever actually enjoyed. But at the same time, it's, and maybe I need to look online a little bit deeper myself to find more recipes and stuff and things that people have done. I've only found so many things that I actually enjoyed eating, especially hot. But I honestly at this point am not living to eat, I'm eating to live. And we all should probably keep it like that. Love yourself. Learn to love thyself. And if you can't do it in food, if you can't do it in disciplining yourself, then it's going to be very hard for you ever to not lie to yourself, because you have to be honest about what all of these things actually are. And at the end of the day, all of them are a distraction. And your food, if it's not helping you, it's hurting you, it's a distraction. And a distraction away from you accepting any realm of the truth. And if the truth itself is still not a validative reason for you to say, I'm out, I'm done, goodbye, to whatever it is, then maybe you just don't want the true healing you seek. But you never know. Chase what you desire. And just don't bullshit yourself. Don't lie to yourself. That's all you don't have to do. I'm not going to sit here and tell you what you should or shouldn't do entirely. But I will say, just don't bullshit yourself. Don't lie to yourself. Because the only way you're going to find happiness truly, or find any realm of good feelings in your existence, is making sure that you honestly tell yourself that that's what you want to begin with. And whatever you seek will find you, as long as you keep your intentions and your emotional intentions there. I'm Arrow Mist, and thank you for watching or listening. Arrowmist.xyz. Check me out on all the socials. We do be posting music every month and a new podcast every week on Friday or Wednesday. I don't know. I'm going to set that up. I haven't done that yet. I might do every Wednesday. Y'all be safe.